Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Heart, Mind, and Voice Show. Hi, people out there. Hello, co hosts and special guests. How are you all this evening?
Hello.
Great.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Excellent.
So glad to be on air, especially after this week of adventure. And we'll get right into that. But first, I'm going to introduce our lovely co host as well as our special guest. You have your girl here, Shalonda, known as Happy Bill. You have our girl, Cam, known as Serious K. And Miss Kenny, known as Queen A. And ladies, I got a treat for you tonight. We have a very special guest tonight. We're so excited that he's a part of our show. We have some really good information to share, and he's going to give you from a man's perspective. So, ladies, take them earrings off. Clean those ears, and we are going to welcome our very special guest, Mr. Trebor, known as Bo Powell. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. So happy to be on here. I'm excited. No question now. You got the setup now. You got it set up real good.
Well, welcome on our show tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know what's going on in Mr. Bo's life.
Well, tell a little bit about myself. There's a lot to. I won't go into all of it. We won't start back. Way back in 1974. We won't do that. I live here in Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is where I live at. I've got a couple of kids. Well, actually, not a couple of kids. I got 3 kids. I got grandbabies now. And just really more than anything, excited and honored to be on here tonight. So what I do for a living, I'm a just broke. And what I specialize in doing is helping people to identify and implement solutions that protect their assets, eliminate their debt, and grow their assets. So being broke won't be an issue for generations to come.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Right.
So that's kind of really where my passion is at this particular time. One of the things I read recently was there was an article that came out in Black Enterprise that said African American wealth was projected to be at 0 by the year 2053. And so it just really ignited a passion with me to step out of corporate America right at the beginning of the pandemic and just do something for myself. God gave me the grace to do that. And so that's really where our focus is at this particular time. Surviving this winter storm and, really more than anything tonight, just being excited to share the show be on the show with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. And we are so glad that you are here tonight. And we want to welcome our audience for viewing in. We have so much to give to you tonight. We just want to first make sure that everyone knows that we are the Heart, Mind, and Voice Show. And it is our intention to never, 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 never harm anyone or offend anyone or make anyone feel less than. So please understand that we are here to heal the heart, renew the mind, all through the power of transparency. You got that? All right, y'all, let's get to the show. So let's talk about our hot topic tonight, you guys, are about Dr. Dre and Miss April Jones. Now, of course, we all know about Dr. Dre, at least as far as what the media educate us on. And some of us know a little bit about April Jones. Are you all familiar with April Jones? You guys know her a little bit. She was affiliated with, was it Omarion? Was it Omarion, right? Or was it Marcus?
Yeah.
It was Omarion.
Oh, don't confuse me.
I know, right?
They have 2 kids together. That's a whole nother drama, what went on with them, why they were married and now they're divorced and she's moved on and looks like she's moved on with someone that hasn't quite moved on from his affiliations. So what's in the latest that's in the media for Dr. Dre is that, of course, you all know that a couple of weeks or a month ago, he had an aneurysm and he's gone through this horrific divorce, from his wife of so many years. And so now the rumor is out that he's in a relationship. He's not divorced yet. It's not official because they're still back and forth in court, allegedly. So now he's dating, allegedly, Miss April Jones. So tonight, audience, our topics and what we're going to discuss tonight is dealing with relationships, is dealing with friendships, co-workers. We're going to talk about expectations, with those different types of relationships of all kinds, even just with people in general, as well as standards and boundaries, and most of all, lessons learned out of all of that, especially when you're dealing with the big word LOVE.
Yes.
Some major lessons learned with that big LOVE. So you guys tell me, how do you feel just with the what lesson can be learned just out, or what lessons do you think that I would give my point first as far as with the April Jones and Dr. Dre? I feel like a lesson that could be learned, but I don't think there's any lessons that is really wanting to be learned when it comes to those two, especially with her. And that's just because of her past and just seeing her, not so much as hearing what she says or what she's done, but me looking at her Instagram and just seeing how she talks, how she carries herself, her, just everything that she actually says out of her mouth. I don't think she's really trying to learn a lesson out of this, or she's even open for a lesson out of this. I think it's just all about everything I could get in the moment. And maybe that's her lifestyle. But you guys tell me, what do you think about this situation?
Well,
We're listening.
so
Let y'all take the lead on this
well, for me, I don't necessarily look at certain things. To me, it seems like he just had a major health scare, and he's getting back out there and enjoying himself. And that's how I view it. And I say there's nothing wrong with it. To be honest, possibly he could have been doing it before before his separation.
Well, true.
Like, I'm just saying. Most, to me, it just seems like he's just getting out in life, and that's how I look at it. He's going through a divorce, and he's back on the scene, and he's just enjoying himself. So I take it as just enjoying. Some people may say, well, you just jumping out of a relationship and quickly you're going into something else, but it depends, on a person. So that's my take on it.
Gotcha. Miss Serious K, what do you think?
Well, with Dre, I don't know. I hear some people say, they have this saying, the best way to get over one is go get another one.
Yeah.
And that may be what Dre is doing. You know what I'm saying? He like okay, almost like what Kanina's saying. He's trying to have a good time, but that's his way of getting over, his wife and moving on. And Miss April Jones, I heard her response to the, people find out about them dating and stuff, and she's just like, just because you're dating somebody don't mean you're having sex with them. She's like, yeah, if somebody called me tonight, and I had a date a couple of days ago, and somebody called me tonight and they want to go out and have a good time, I'll go. She's like, I am single. When you're single, that's what you do. She's like, that doesn't mean that I'm sleeping with somebody. So I don't know, Miss April Jones, probably she just kind of, weighing her options, trying to get the bag. That's just my opinion on it. She's a young woman, beautiful. She's beautiful. Young woman, an older man, he's well, he good, he got the bag, so she's trying to get somewhere.
Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Bo. From a male.
Look, I don't know a whole lot about it. Outside of his brother had an aneurysm, so I mean, from what I know, if you had an aneurysm, you probably almost checked out of here. So, why not live it up? You know what I'm saying? So why not live it up? So
okay, so
I've never experienced that, but I know if something happened, I guess something happened to the point to where I had a brain aneurysm. Once I come out of that, I'm probably gonna have a new outlook on life, and so I'm gonna try to live it up. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on it. I don't know a whole lot about the situation, but coming out of a brain aneurysm,
whatever I can get myself.
So
go
wait,
ahead.
so So this is very interesting, right? I try not to bring sex in every topic, but I can't help it. So I'm just curious,
ground
right?
post conversation. Come on with.
My
So
goodness.
I'm curious, right? When you have a brain aneurysm, right? Because for a guy, blood flows, right? So what happens when you have a brain aneurysm and you try to have sex? Like, do you have to be careful? I wonder when you're having sex, or like what happens, because that's something very serious, and and the brain, the blood has to flow. So it takes extra, activities and extra work for the blood to flow.
Wow.
Do your research.
Hey,
You
but
have to
check
take
it
it
out.
to a whole nother level.
If I know men, we're gonna find out. That's for sure. We're gonna find out if it's still working.
I have to play devil's advocate here, as I always do. First of all, I understand, if they were two single people, because keep in mind we're the Heart Minded Voice Show. If they were two single people, he and her single, she's single, she can enjoy life. He is not yet single. So I have to play. Now, I have been on that other side where I have dated guys that were going through a divorce and it was a catastrophe. And however, everybody's experience is different. So everybody's experience is not the same. However, she is single. She's enjoying life. He is not. Now, sometimes, and it's not all the time, even though their divorce is crazy, but it's not all the time. But sometimes, if they're not completely divorced, that husband and wife just might reconcile. So, is she really living her life up? I think she's like what Sirius K is saying, getting that bag. And like I said at first, getting as much as she can get in the moment. Because real love doesn't exist here. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of lessons learned, expectations, let's talk about the different types of relationships. So when it comes to, we can go from when it comes to a friendship, when it comes to a significant relationship like that boo, that woman boo or that male boo, or when it comes to coworkers or clients or just people in general. Now, I have actually said that I don't have many expectations from just like my neighbor or someone on the street. There are standards and boundaries that I have. You just can't come knock on my door anytime. You can't come visit me anytime, but do I expect them to be a certain way towards me? No, not really. The only thing I would say is respect, and that's absolutely from everybody. You respect somebody, you get respect in return, but nothing else. But when it comes to that friendship or that relationship, that boo, I expect him to be a certain way. I expect my friend to be a certain way in our friendship. So, ladies and gentlemen, tell me what you think about that, Bo.
I knew you was coming at me. I knew you was coming for me. Um, I think there's expectations in every relationship. Standards and expectation in every relationship, whether it's platonic, whether it's romantic. You always have them there. It's just a different mix of the two. I like to always say, every business is going to be every relationship is going to be a mix of business and personal. So if it's a business relationship, you expect some type of personal touch to that business relationship.
Yeah,
but if it's a romantic relationship, if it's a romantic relationship, you expect that person to also be able to handle their business, to some way. So every relationship that we encounter is going to have some expectations. They're going to have some standards there, even if it's a stranger, because of the context of the culture that we live in. There are certain expectations, that you expect some type of person, even if you don't know them, that they need to act a certain way. The challenge is when our expectations are misplaced, in my opinion. A lot of times we have standards. Many times we have double standards. We expect certain treatment towards ourselves, but we don't want to give the same treatment to the other person. So we have the double standards with that. So, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what relationship it is. It's going to be standards. There's going to be expectations there. It just depends what the bottom line is what level it's going to be. Is it a major expectation? What am I going to deal with, or this? How much grace are we going to give in that relationship? I think that's really what it boils down to, depending on what the relationship is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's a very good question for each of you guys. There was a question that was posed, and they asked, do you think that a person that has been, let me make sure I get the question right, a person that has been out of a relationship for a long time, do you think that it would be easy for them to just get back into the flow of things? Is that the
Heck
question?
no.
Mhm. So,
Do you think it'll be easy? Okay, let me hear about that, Queen A.
so this is very interesting because so,
Oh, yeah.
for me, I've been single for some time. I mean, I've dated and everything, but I haven't lived with someone for some time. So I questioned, how is that going to be blending lives together? And to be honest with you, like, for instance, like, we wake up with stinky breath. We have all type of things that's going on. And it's like, are you okay? Like, can you be okay with it? And of course, that's where the dating stage come in. But I do question sometimes, how is it? And definitely for me, I would love to be in a relationship, love to be married. But I do question sometimes, like, how is it? Especially, I had known someone that hadn't dated, or even been in a relationship for 15 years. So I asked him, well, how, are you ready to blend a life? Are you ready to, have a wife and you all moving in together? And how do you adjust to that? How do you change in the process of that? So very interesting. And, you've been used to like being single for so long and doing your own thing. So that takes time.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
So
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of adjustments. In that instance, it seemed like I'm all for relationships. I'm an advocate for relationships, and I
Yes.
believe that's when people need counseling because
Mhm.
we may not know how to blend. We think we know how to blend lives together, but we may not know actually how to blend it together, and that's why premarital counsel is important even before you move in with a person. Like to me, it's important to have some type of wise counsel around that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
totally agree, especially with Bo mentioned about standards and boundaries with everybody and expectations with all relationships, platonic as well as romantic, all relationships. And especially when it's been a while, I mentioned that when it's been a while, there's a lot of adjustments. And
Mhm.
especially it depends on the age because the older you are, it's true, the more settled
Absolutely.
you become.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
some things you are just not gonna put
Mhm.
up with, in your late 40s, mid to late 40s, everybody on here versus, the 20s and the 30s where they can
Right.
adjust quickly and change up and
Yeah.
kind of mold and shape, themselves into what they really like or what they're okay with. You're just not going to do that when you're, knocking on 50's door. Serious K, you're in a marriage. So you tell me, what do you think about that as far as adjusting? I mean, you were single for a while, and then now you're married, and of course you've been married for some years now. So you tell us what you think. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an adjustment. I
Yeah.
think back on my husband, like when we were dating, we didn't move, we didn't live together until like the week before our wedding day.
Mm,
So it also was an adjustment for him because he had been living by himself for years. Like, yeah, he dated women, but he never lived with another woman.
mm-hmm,
So
Wow.
it was definitely an adjustment for him because he had to give up some things, a lot of his
mm-hmm.
personal space, a lot of, just he had to make a big adjustment. So I was worried about him at first, but he was all right once he got adjusted. He was
Mm-hmm.
okay. But yes, definitely an adjustment. And by me being single for some time, I had to readjust. I'm like, okay, gotta start back calling, checking in. Hey, I'm over here and I'm doing this
Right.
and I'm doing that. When I'm used to just going about my business, doing my thing. So yes,
Yeah.
definitely an adjustment. Yeah.
Here's a really good one. What do you guys think? That was something good that you said, Serious K, as far as like, now I had to get back once you got married, you had to get back into the flow of things of checking in and
Mhm.
he, it's getting used to actually being married and being with someone every single day, whereas he was
Yeah.
single and he had no one and I mean even the fortunate thing he didn't have any kids or anything,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that is something major, the adjustment. If
Mhm.
you don't have any kids or like all of us except me, with the 9-year-old at 46. But anyway, everybody on here, their kids are when we have grandparents on here. So Bo. But everybody else, kids are grown and gone. I mean, freedom life.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about as far as getting with someone at your age that has a 9-year-old or like a 12-year-old? I mean, you
Oh,
talk about
good.
adjustment. I mean, some people are like, no, that's a no for me. I'm not starting over, because you feel like you're starting over and you shouldn't have to, because you've raised your
Yeah.
kids.
Okay.
So, but what if you fall in with that woman, Bo, that, oh my God, this is the woman of my dreams, and she has a 5-year-old? So, what do you think? What are your
What,
expectations of that?
to each his own. Like for me, I have a son who's 24, and I'm okay with kids. Like it's crazy because I say I love kids, but I'm impatient with them. But I work a lot with children, and I'm okay with, someone who has even a 2-year old. Like, so for me, I'm willing to blend that life together with someone who has children. And I don't think it impacts me or bother me. It depends on, and especially how the relationship is with the significant other, with the other parent. So that would be my concern, not so much the children, but how's the relationship with the other parent.
Yeah.
Bo?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo the same sentiment, and in fact, that's my situation now, and I welcome that. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
welcome that. Met an amazing lady who has a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and
Okay.
so I welcome that. I've always, it's kind of a strange thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he kind of mentioned that. He says, "Man, you always kind of tend to, you know, find a woman that has a child, but I love kids. I really love kids,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I don't have a problem with it. I think what it really boils down to is just like she said, what kind of relationship do they have with their significant other? Are they
Wow.
are they good co-parents?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be faced with, you know, baby daddy drama, and all that, inconsistencies and stuff there, are they totally removed from that relationship? So I don't think there's a blanket way to go at that. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
per individual person. I know a lot of guys don't like that. I just don't happen to be one of them. And so I'm okay as long as they've got their stuff together,
Mm-hmm.
to where I don't get caught in the middle of a whole bunch of mess.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this right here is going to make us slide right on into lessons learned,
But
red flags.
Well, you know what? Before
want
I want to say this really quick, Shalonda. So to get to
Yeah.
the meat and the truth of it, right?
Yeah.
So I was in a relationship where, at the time my son was, I believe, 16,
Mm-hmm.
and his son was, I think his son was 18.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a challenge. Like, I didn't mind it, but it was such a challenge because he wanted to discipline my son, and I was okay with it, but the way he disciplined him. So to be
Mhm.
honest, that's where the real issues come in, and how you believe in disciplining. Because when it comes like, look, don't talk to my child, don't touch my child. So, to be honest with you, we have to get to the heart of it. And it's, like, not saying I don't mind, but when it comes to, because now has to be where I may discipline the child, he has to discipline the child. How do you do that? So that's the real thing
Yeah.
when it comes to discipline, when it comes to love, because you don't love another child as your own. So when you
Yeah.
have so it's like those are real issues that we're not discussing and talking about. So I can say all day, I don't mind it. But when it comes to disciplining, when it comes to loving that child, like, look, your child's getting on my nerves. So,
Yeah.
Very
so how
true.
do you, so that's
Yeah.
the realness of it. So that's where the challenge comes in, especially as moms. We, as mothers, we are extremely overprotective. We
Protective.
will fight for our child. So,
100%.
Yeah.
so when you have someone that got to sit up there and tell you, like, okay, your child can't do this, or your child shouldn't do this. And I'm like, oh, wait, but who are you? And I forget
Yeah.
that person is who I'm in a relationship with, and they have
Yeah.
every right, because they are also help raising that child. But it's hard to, like, have another man come in And especially when I've been raising that child, he has a father to come in, and I have to remember to understand that, and to understand that he's a part of the child's life now. But for him, I remember we had to have the discussion. I had to let him know, like, what bothered me about it. Why was this, was it a concern? Like, I felt like he didn't discipline a child out of love, but out of maybe dislike or maybe getting angry. And that may have not been the case, but that's the way I perceived it. So we had to have a lot of counseling and talking about that.
So what would
Yeah,
you say the lesson learned in that situation?
Um, I wouldn't say not dating anyone with children, but communication is the key. Continuous, and then also helping him feel a part, because that's where sometimes I would get angry and I would pull my son and we just go do things together. So I had to, and then when he confronted me about it and said, "Hey, I don't like when you do this." We had to communicate consistently around it, and that was the key. So that was the lesson for me, is to involve him in the planning of, my child and I, to involve in the discipline of it, and heavily communicate. And that's where I went wrong, where I didn't communicate it. I didn't understand from his perspective, why he did what he did, or even why I did what I did. So I had to communicate that, and so that's the lesson learned, is communication is the key.
So that's did you want to say something serious, Kay?
yeah, I do. And that's exactly dead on what I was going to say. I was in a previous relationship with a nine-year old, and I think a lot of mistakes that a lot of single parents make, at least I'll just talk about my lesson learned. A lot of time they don't make space for that new person to come in. It's just like what you were
Yes.
talking about. There's no space, and I know as a man, my thing is, okay, I'm in the house, and I'm not just going to be a man in the house. I'm going to be the man of the house too. But if she hadn't created space for me, if there's no space there for me, and then of course now you have these isolated conversations, and it becomes this me versus them. And so we have these things, and so it's very tough to blend when you don't have two willing parties that are willing to give that space, to make that space. So I think, before you even get into a relationship, you ought to begin to not only prepare yourself, but prepare your kids,
Oh,
to say,
yes.
hey, prepare
Yes.
your kids that, hey, I am actively, looking for a relationship, and start to prepare, bedtime. Hey, you ain't going to be sleeping with mommy, because, there's another
Right.
man supposed to be up in this bed and stuff like. You got coming in, you got coming. I mean, you may not see it like that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
There has to be
Yeah.
space for that guy. Otherwise, he ends up feeling pushed out, feeling
Yes.
isolated, and the resentment comes. So, if for me, those conversations up front are vitally important. I know that
Yeah.
was something for me, really not having those conversations up front, and holding the other person accountable, to what we're going to do, how we're going to raise. Sometimes we kind of get caught up and we just kind of move forward despite these little checks in our spirit that, hey, we need to back up a little bit, right? Or we don't call it to question, or we don't call into account. So I
Right.
think communication becomes vitally important
Yes.
to make
Yeah.
sure that you and that other person are on the same page, when it comes to discipline, when it comes to child rearing, to schedules and stuff like. I mean, there's got to be. I mean, it's almost down. It's almost like a, what do you call that, policies and procedures manual. You got to pretty much outline every single thing,
That's
you
true.
know, because the smallest little thing can cause a whole bunch of mess in the
Yes.
relationship,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and because you didn't really address it.
Yeah.
And so, and then the thing is, you got to do check-ins. You got to do check-ins and say, okay, how are we doing? Anything we need to change or anything like that. So I'm in total agreement with that. But communication is key.
And you know what? Love conquers all, right? And it's
It's
like
supposed
even for
to.
me, yeah, well, it should, yes. But even for
It
me, when I
should.
think about that relationship, um, I wanted the relationship, but not enough where I wanted to make the adjustments and the changes.
Hmm.
So I believe when you really know you want a person and you want to spend a life, you make the adjustment and the changes. Like, of course, it's going to be challenging in any relationship, and blending families is a challenge. But I definitely believe, what the Bibles talk about too, with
Hmm.
love definitely conquers all. And I thinking back on that relationship, it was some things that I was unsure of in the relationship. So because I was unsure, the love didn't rule over any matter. So
Mhm.
I believe when this love is genuinely present, you will work through, if you mature. Some people not spiritually, emotionally
Mm-hmm.
mature. When you mature, love definitely conquers all, and you make the necessary adjustments to make it work, to blend families. And I grew up in a blended family. Like I was raised with my stepmother and my father, and I mean it was definitely challenges, but I thank God for her. Like it was a major
Mm-hmm.
challenge, but
Mm-hmm.
because there was love present, not just love for my father, but it was love on her side, for me as a child.
Mhm.
And I thank God for her. Again, it was a lot of challenges, but because God was in it, because there was love there, it definitely were able to get through some things. So that's the biggest thing. You got to know if you want to spend the rest of your life with this person. If you do, you make the adjustment.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true. Go ahead, Sirius.
I, I wanted to say, my last marriage was a blended family. And
Mhm.
I think it's very, very important to, before you even introduce this person to your children, you need to talk to that person about the history of your kids.
Ooh.
Okay?
Oh,
Because
Yes.
yes.
sometimes you don't let somebody just come in and start disciplining your child. You don't know the history of that kid. You know what I mean? You don't know
Right.
what that child has been through, or what the mother and the child been through with the father, or whatever, or his
Mhm.
baby mama and the children. You don't know. So that's why really I'm on the fence about this. My thing is, each parent should discipline their own kid. Now,
Mhm.
if I
Mm-hmm.
see that kid doing something wrong, then I'm gonna bring it to his attention and say, "Hey, Shoo Shoo did this, or little TT did this, and
Mhm.
I think you should have a talk with him, because you never want to overstep those boundaries."
Mhm.
And so that's why, going back to what y'all were saying about meet somebody with little kids. So that's why when after that marriage, and I just said, you know what, if I get married again, the man, if he has kids, they got to be my kids' age or older.
Yes.
Okay, because
Mhm.
there's a lot that comes with blended families,
Oh
and
God,
it's
Yes.
yes.
complicated. Now,
Mhm.
my my stepdaughters, they were beautiful. We got along really well. I still love them to this day.
Mhm.
But coming into blended families, there's got to be a lot of communication. And I would also suggest that the families come together and sit and talk with the kids.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that new stepmother or stepfather sit down and establish a relationship with these children before you just start coming in and, hey, they don't know you. You don't
Right.
do
Yeah.
that. They don't know
Right.
you. So that's my take on that. You just have to be
That's
really careful. You have to tread lightly with those blended families.
Yes. Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
that's
I
really
think you
good.
said. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bo.
Now I think you said something key as far as having to sit down together.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um, First and foremost, to show that, because you know how kids are. Kids will they'll try to play sides and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
Yes.
think it's vitally important that you guys show up together as a united front and establish those relationships. And I totally agree as far as disciplining and stuff like that. At the same time, though, without having those conversations together and saying, okay, hey, we're together, we're both parenting you or whatever, sometimes that respect level won't be there from the kids,
Mhm.
because they say, okay, well, I know this person can't, is not going to do anything to me. And
Mhm.
again, it kind of goes back into these choosing sides. And
Yes.
so, even if it's a blended family, at the end of the day, you still have to parent as a united front. Now,
Yes.
who's going to
Absolutely.
deliver? Who's going to do the disciplining? Of course, you guys work that out. But a lot of times, what happens is, just kind of goes back to what I said earlier. And if that person hasn't really created space, in their heart, and even kind of, beginning to structure their life like that, it causes way more problems than necessary.
Yes.
And if there's no communication there, just really just makes it really, really difficult to establish anything long term.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very true. I would agree with everybody. This, of course, we're not really focused, solely on blended families, but when you do get on that subject, there is a lot to cover with blended families, and definitely there's a lot of lessons to be learned when it comes to
Mhm.
blended family. I too married into a blended family and had never been in a relationship of such. Well, I was previously, but they were adult children, and yeah, no issues there.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with, I will share something that could be a lesson learned. It's definitely a lesson learned for me, and could be for someone else that's maybe contemplating a relationship, or blended families. But I would say a red flag would be, even just if it's not a blended family, but if you're not involved in what's going on in your significant other's life, if y'all are seriously dating, I'm not just talking about going to lunch here and there or dinner here and there, and y'all are dating multiple people, but when it's exclusive
Mhm.
and you're
Mhm.
dating one another seriously and y'all are have talking about plans about the future, and if y'all are not included in each other's future, I would
Yes.
say after a 12 months period. I
Yeah.
mean, I think a 12-month is fair. That's a whole year that you're spending your
Mhm.
time. If you're not included in their thoughts, they're talking about, yeah, I think I want to get a job in Japan and go travel the world. And your heart is invested in this individual, and they're talking about leaving and traveling the world, not with you but on their own. That's a red flag. That's something to
Mhm.
look
Yeah.
at. So respect yourself enough to say,
Yeah.
hey, maybe we can have this heart to heart talk one more time. And if I'm not in his future, if I'm not in her future, then, we're just not meant to be. And it's easier said than done because, when we get our hearts invested in, in others, it's kind of hard to just walk away.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
you're being taught how communication is so vital and so important, to really have that open space to where you guys can be, I mean, solely concrete with each other and
Mhm.
solely just let them know what's going on in your heart and mind. And I'm talking about for the serious ones, the ones that are seriously dating, and
Mhm.
wanting to have a future with one another. Understand each other's future and make sure you're both a part of it.
Mhm.
So,
Let me say this,
go ahead.
Shalonda. I just want to read some comments from the audience. Now, we would love to
Sure.
hear your comments. That helps feed the conversation moving forward. Josephine
Questions.
Casilio said, I have the same testimony, Elder Powell. So we want to hear what testimony you have, Josephine.
Oh,
Also, Shahid, our former guest. Hey, Shahid.
Hey,
He said, hey, ladies.
hi,
He said, hey, ladies, you look beautiful. Yes, there need to be expectations and boundaries in every form of relationship. The hard part is walking away when the person doesn't meet them, but that's a whole other conversation. That's a
what
very
I
good
just
thing.
said.
It's
Mhm.
hard to walk away. So,
What
yeah,
I
we would
just
love to
said.
hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very hard to walk away. But I just said we're talking about that big word, LOVE. That's a big word. So, when you're all tied in and another thing, and this is something that I really want us to hit on tonight, co-host and special guest. Let's talk about some of these red flags because you know what?
Mhm.
80%, I'm not gonna say 100, but 80% of the time, women in general, we overlook the red flags. Would you disagree, Bo, since you're a male? Would you disagree that male
Yeah,
look over the red flags too? No, I say
yeah,
it's the women.
I mean,
Why?
we do, but you said women, so I'm a.
Like, okay.
And before we go, I just want to say this, Josephine. I just want to definitely commend you. She said I had a brain tumor, but no more. So praise God for
Praise
that.
God.
And it
God
was
is
Yes,
good.
and
praise
not
the Lord.
making room for someone new. So I'm very interested. Why not, Josephine? Someone could be in the picture. Someone could be in the picture.
Oh my God. She's like, but yeah,
Um,
I would say that as when let's go back to that the brain tumor as far as what that his wife, Dr. Dre's wife, could have possibly because of everything that they're going through. It could have been from that stress. Um, and stress, of course, can come from everything, just like what Josephine just says, fear of failing, fear of failing.
oh, that's
Yes,
a
it is
very
the
deep
main
topic. Oh, that's
Mhm.
a main stressor
wow.
that will cause you to go in any type of attack or panic. The fear of failing, just failing in general, in career and love, everything in life, especially
Mhm.
now since 2020 and 2021. Some said we crossed over. I still think we're stuck in 2020 with all the things that are going on, especially what just happened this week. But when if someone, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we don't in relationships, a lesson learned. I feel like we don't respect ourselves, and this could be a controversial statement, but I'm going to say it. Y'all know me. I feel like we do not respect ourselves enough to allow the time that we need as individuals to heal and to figure out who we are and what do we really want in life. Do we
Mhm.
really want someone with kids? Do we really want someone to build with? Do we want someone already is built and we can just flow right on in? You know, what do we really want? So I feel like we don't allow ourselves enough time. Not that it's everybody. I know that's right, Josephine. She said but I just feel like we don't allow ourselves enough time to do the work. As Iyanla says, do the work. We don't do the work. And
Mhm.
that's why so many, I am so against divorce, though I am going in one. You wouldn't have thought that this week during the ice storm, because I was right there with him. He took very good care of me and my little one. But I, when I say go through the work, it takes
Mhm.
work. Once you're going through a divorce, if you just got out of a long-term relationship, it takes work to get yourself back together and get your mind into one piece and just become you again. And
Yeah.
really, figure out, what do I want?
Mhm.
Who do I want? Because of
Mhm.
course, many of us
Mhm.
are in love, many of us are in love with love, but it's all about that process of becoming you. It's all about that process of becoming.
So, wow, you know what,
Right.
Shalonda, you said something powerful, the process of becoming. So, to address Josephine Castillo, fear of failing. So, I wanted to address that because that's very powerful. And that's
Yes.
a very true fact and very true thing that many people go through. Josephine said, time give us the time to introduce ourselves to our true whole selves.
Yes.
And that's so
Yes.
true. And I want to say, even for like, I've heard, I do coaching. So, I've heard several people say that they didn't want to move forward because of fear of failing. Like even for me, even in starting my business, it's like I was so afraid of failing that I would not step out. But guess what? It wasn't so much of the fear of failing. It was because I was unsure of what I wanted. So
Mm,
when you are unsure of who you are and what you want, it could create the fear of failing. And just for me,
Mhm.
even in relationships, it's like, I'm people say I'm very independent. I don't know. I don't know, but you know, but it's not, but it's like sometimes it's like I feel like, I had to become that way because I was afraid of getting into a relationship and being in a relationship with someone because I was in fear of maybe I'm a perfectionist. I can't help it. I'm trying to get better, but the fear of not being enough for that person, the fear of not even like feeling that I may fail in that relationship. So sometimes I wouldn't even try, and I may push the person, not now, but before, I may have pushed the person away because the fear of feeling that I'm not enough, or even not sure of what the hell I wanted in a relationship or from a man.
Mhm.
So I had to go through that process of healing to find out, Kenny, what the heck do you want? So,
mhm.
once I identified that, I began to see the change of the type of men that I was attracting in my life.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then that caused, to take the steps. And now it's like I have high standards, not just in terms of who I get with, but even for myself, I have very high standards. So
Yeah.
I can, I can work with it though. but but I'm just saying, it's just like I've come to learn who Kaneen is, what Kaneen wants in a relationship, in life. And when once I've learned that, the fear of failing, because failing is a part of lessons learned. If we don't
Mhm.
fail, we're never going to get the lessons. So
That's true.
Mhm.
that's why we have to take the steps, and we have to be not being afraid to fall or fail, because that's the true thing of growth. When
Yeah.
you grow, you have to fall, you have to fail, because that's the thing that's going to help you become stronger in who you are and what you want to accomplish.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Right.
Josephine said, I
Right.
do not even make myself available, which is what my daughters say to me. Oh, I would love to
Wow.
talk to you, Josephine. I have a lot, honey, to say. I have
I
a
think
lot. I mean, prophetically speaking, I have a lot to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And you know what? And you know what, Josephine? I think we all share your same sentiments. I mean, we all have that fear of failure, and it's okay. It's okay to feel however you're feeling, but don't let that hinder you from that person that may be out there for you, that blessing. That like some people they fear going on the job interview. They think they're not good enough for this job. We fear all the time when it's time to make a big decision, and that's okay. But just get out there, put yourself out there, make yourself available. I mean, like Kaneen said earlier, there's lessons learned and we become stronger and we grow in those failures.
Yeah.
So put yourself out there, make yourself available. You just never know. You never know, you may meet that person.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Especially if you're wanting to. She
Oh,
said,
Josephine, I would love to speak with you too. We got to give her our email so we can connect. And
yes.
Trevor, Mr. Bo, we want to hear from a male perspective. What you think
Yeah.
about what Josephine is saying?
Say again now. What Josephine is saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anything. I think you guys hit it right on the head. I mean, you gotta get out there and make it happen. If you want to be with someone, I think that's a part of doing the work. It's like what we were talking about. And I don't. Some people say it takes time to do that, but it's not necessarily time doesn't necessarily heal all wounds. I've seen people who waited years to get in a relationship, but they didn't do the work. A lot of people busied themselves and distracted themselves from really having to deal with themselves or what they dealt with that. So I think it's just, whether that takes you a year, whether it takes you a few months, whether it takes you 5 years, I think you got to do the work to make that happen. I know most experts say you should look at for every year you're with someone, you should take a month.
Oh,
So if you're
wow.
with somebody for 3 years, then you need to take at least 3 months. You're with somebody
That's
for
very
six
true.
years, you should take at least 6 months with that. So with that being said, a lot of people may say, well, you were with this person for 3 years and it's 6 months, you're with someone else. Well, realistically, if you were dedicated and focused on doing the work, you can get through it. For
Yeah.
me, I'm a huge advocate of therapy.
Yeah.
I know therapy for me. I was in therapy for a whole year because my last relationship exposed some things that I did not know was there, and so I took those things to therapy. And what I learned in therapy, which I had a great therapist, but she taught me some ways to really cope and deal with things. And one of the adages I got out of there, she says, Bo, you gotta. She says, my message is you gotta own your stuff. I'll just say you gotta own your stuff, right?
Right, right, right.
I got to own your stuff, right?
Hmm.
And so just really learning to take to sometimes it takes that person, an external person, to help you to see within maybe some things you're not looking at. And so I think so oftentimes people don't want to get help, professional help, to deal with some of the deals that they've dealt with, and because they may blame it on the last relationship they got out, but really it was something that happened from way back in their childhood that they never lived.
That's true.
Maybe
Yes.
a relationship that they had or didn't have with their parent, whether it was a mom or dad. Maybe someone abandoned them. Maybe there was abuse there. And
Hmm.
until those things are dealt with, you can take all the time you want in the world, but you're just going to get back into a new relationship and just do the same thing over and
Do
over
the
again
same
because you
thing.
never really get down to the root of it, right?
That's right.
Yes.
And so,
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm an ordained minister. I believe in prayer. I believe in faith, and confession and all that. I believe Holy Spirit exposes all things. But sometimes you need to get with somebody who also has a sense of discernment, because at the end of the day, you can say that you have discernment, but if you're not healed, there's a chance you may not still be seeing correctly.
That's
Right.
That
right.
discernment
Yes.
could be tainted if you
Yes.
Yeah.
will. So you may need someone who's professionally licensed to say, "Hey, let me help you get through this." There's some things that you're not seeing, maybe because you're just adamant of not seeing it, or maybe you're just in denial or whatever. But until you're willing to do the work and be committed completely to do the work, and even get help to help you get through it, because I think everybody can testify to having more than one failed relationship in their life,
Hmm.
probably
Yes.
more than two or three relationships in their life, whether it's
Yes.
married or whatever. So the common denominator is you. So I'm
Yes.
a
Yes.
firm believer in
Yeah.
therapy with that. And so time is one thing. It's not so much about the time. It's about what you do with that time that makes all the difference in the world.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. Can I
Wow.
address Josephine?
Yes.
But she said, my fear is loving deeply and not being in love with the same level of reciprocity. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not reciprocated. That love is not reciprocated. Josephine, it just sounds like there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I don't know if it, okay, you said our childhood trauma. I was going to say, did it come from like a relationship that you were hurt before? And maybe, speaking of expectations, maybe you're thinking that when you get in this new relationship, you're expecting that new love to behave the same way the last person did that hurt you. Um, I think that there's a lot of healing needs to be done first before you move on. And that's just my opinion in that. But we can't project those same feelings onto other people. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of healing needs to be done first because
Yeah.
I mean, you should give somebody else a fair chance before you just assume that they're going to do that to you. Because when we talk about expectations and standards and stuff, expectations, I always separate the two. Some people use them interchangeably, but I separate the two because to me, expectations are the behaviors that we look for from other
Yeah.
people, the way we expect them to behave. And standards is
Exactly.
kind of like this set of boundaries that we place upon ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
guard
Like
ourselves.
values.
For others to
That
respect.
is
Values.
our
Yeah.
values, and it can relate to religion, and all that type stuff. So we put
Mm-hmm.
those expectations on people, and sometimes they're unfair expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have to be careful with.
That's very true. Josephine, certainly reach out to us on Heart Mind Voice Show at gmail.com. We definitely want to hear from you and we definitely will respond back to you. So certainly reach out to us. We just may have something in store for you. So reach out to us again at Heart Mind Voice Show at gmail.com. And this has been a great show. I don't want to end the conversation. However, we do want to highlight a few more things of our show. Again, we're so grateful for our guests giving us some key gems on dealing with expectations and lessons learned when it involves all types of relationships. Different types of relationships. It was one good comment that I wanted to mention, but it's gone. I do not see it. I don't know if you guys can see it. Definitely read it, but it's from our one of our faves, Shahid. He mentioned about many people ignoring the red flags, and like I mentioned before,
He
we
said
do
because of the money or the looks.
because of the
Oh
money of the
yeah.
The
looks.
coins, the
And
looks or the coins. Yes.
goes
Mm-hmm.
back to that hot topic.
Mhm.
We just, and again, women are more guilty of that. I would say more so than men, generally speaking. That we overlook it because of the convenience of the
Mhm.
relationship. So, and sometimes convenience can cause pain if it's not, rightfully put. So you just have to be mindful of
Mhm.
that. And she said she just sent an email.
And
Josephine,
she,
okay,
yeah,
baby,
Josephine ready, boy.
it
She
I
brought
ready.
up
know.
Oh.
no.
Shalonda, let me just say this really quick,
Go
Shalonda. I
ahead.
just want to give this, because I'm an avid reader, and it's a woman, Marshall Goldsmith. She wrote a book called Triggers, and that's a very powerful book because sometimes we don't realize and identify with what's triggering us. We may meet people and we like somebody may say one simple thing and we triggered by that and not real, and we may destroy relationships based out of triggers, our own triggers that come from past hurt, past relationships, childhood traumas, and things in our lives. We could have something that seems simple that could be traumatic, but it's not necessarily simple, and it becomes a trigger because we never dealt with it. So that's a very powerful book, and it will help you identify with those things that's triggering you and stop things that's stopping you from moving forward and flowing in life. And I have to say this: you have to love yourself first. Even for me, it took a lot of work for me to love Kaneen. But I had to first establish a relationship with God first and get into, God, and understand who I am in God, understand who I am in the world, understand my purpose. And once I identify with that, it changed my whole world. So
Absolutely. We'll be sure to get
She wants to know
Josephine
who the author is of Triggers.
the authors by triggers. Do you
um,
know
yes, it's Marshall Goldsmith.
Marshall?
Goldsmith.
Oh,
Marshall Goldsmith, Goldsmith.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for your awesome wisdom given to everyone, given to all of us. I just want to say be sure to like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube page. We are giving out gifts, so be sure you just might be that lucky subscriber. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube page. I want to acknowledge our Black History highlight for this week. When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, he became the first African American to hold office. Obama faced major challenges during his two-term tenure in office. His primary policy achievements included health care reform, economic stimulus, banking reform, and consumer protections, and a repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy preventing lesbian and gay Americans from serving openly in the military. And this is from the whitehousehistory.org. We would like to highlight one of our very favorite former president, Barack Obama, for this Black History highlight.
Yes.
Him and his beautiful, beautiful
Right.
First Lady, Michelle Obama, and their beautiful girls.
Yes.
So now we're going to move on. We have a very special, do we have time for that? A very special, special, special poem by one of
Yes.
our very gifted co-hosts, Miss Queen A. Let's hear the inspirational poem, The Depths of a Man's Soul.
Yeah, so really quick, Bangla on YouTube said, what's your Instagram account? Bangla, the Instagram account is Heart, Mind, and Voice. Heart, Mind, and Voice. I hope you got that. Again, it's Heart, Mind, and Voice. All right, so this poem was inspired by my journey of understanding who I met, who I encountered, whether it was through friendship, relationships, sex, whatever. Like, we are who we engage with, and we don't realize it, and somehow that person is an aspect of ourselves. So this poem was inspired by my walk in, becoming pure and waiting for that right man to show up.
All
So
right now.
this poem is, yeah, okay, so here we go. So I'm going to read it from my computer. So it's called The Depths of a Man's Soul. So it's primarily for women. However, take it as it resonates with you. It's for men and women. So here we go. Ladies, you know how it is. Just as we think we finally hit the field goal, then all of a sudden we lose control, trying to discover the depths of a man's soul. You call out, is it him or him who is my beloved? And in the exploration have given them the fruit thereof. Wanting to call the time spent true love, then later in your experience want to call him or him a dog. Who dares to speak words concerning the depths of another soul? Remember, you're the recipient of that man's throne, according to the scripture of Eve, who was Adam's clone. So I guess that makes you the female clone without the bone. Think twice before you name the depths of a man's soul, because you're truly speaking the dark secrets within your own heart. Now finding yourself bitter and eventually apart, never discovering unity as a magnificent true art. Ladies, stay true to your calling as a woman, the wombs of a man's soul, where he creates and produces his man, husband, and fatherhood. And maybe you can dwell in the cave as that special someone. Always search the heights of a man and seek the depths of God while looking within. Eventually, you will find the master plan that had been given to live in love and unity as you were intended. Then and only then you can understand the true depths of a man's soul. That's it.
That's
All right.
beautiful. Beautiful. Love it.
All
So we're
right.
going to be
Beautiful.
expecting that book of poems very soon. So,
Love
so
it.
I think we have one more beautiful inspirational thought coming from our gentleman, Mr. Bo, before we close out. Let
Man,
us
I
hear.
can't believe the show's already over. Man, it's getting good. I just want to say this. I mean, relationships can be really really challenging, especially in these days and times when you look at the dating world. My inspiration, or I should say, my encouragement would be, instead of looking for the right person, be the right person.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. I love
Mm.
that.
I think
Love
that
it.
that is the challenge that people are dealing with. They're looking for the right person because they're looking for what they can get. But being the right person is really all about what you can give. So we all talk about love, but if you look at scripture, it says God so loved the world that he
Yes.
gave. And
Uh-huh.
so if I'm operating from a place of love, it's about what I can give into, what am I bringing into the relationship? I know
Yes.
personally
That
for
part.
me, I'm not looking necessarily for a wife. I'm looking for someone I can be a good husband to. And so
Yes.
when you operate from that perspective, your approach is going to be looking different because if I'm in Christ and Christ is in me, he's the all sufficient one. So my sufficiency first comes in him and through him.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not necessarily looking for someone to come to validate me or who I am or to complete me, if you will. I'm looking for someone who's whole just like I am, who finds their sufficiency in him. And so if we're both in a relationship and we're looking to see what we can give, and so now it becomes a cycle. I'm giving, she's giving, I'm giving
Yes.
again, she's giving. And so now I've just got to be whole enough to where I can receive, right? Because it is more blessing
Yes.
to give than to receive, but you've got to be willing to receive as well. And so if once you get to that place where you're really operating out of love, that perfect love, right?
Yes.
Because the thing is, our love can never be perfect, but we have to be connected to perfect love. And once we
Absolutely.
get connected to perfect love, which is that God's love, then we can properly enter a relationship and manage and maneuver in that thing like we're supposed to be. So that's my
Absolutely.
inspiration. Instead of looking for the right person, be the right person, and all good things will come to
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Bo. That was very, very inspirational and also true. I mean, the eldership definitely came out. You're definitely in your calling.
So,
Thank you guys
Yes.
so much for tuning in. Josephine, we thank you for your beautiful words. We thank you for your beautiful comments. Bangla, we thank you. We definitely want to make this
Thank love.
platform comfortable and open
Thank you.
space to everyone. Shahid, you already know. And we have a special surprise for Mr. Shahid coming up and for our audience. So
Yes.
thank you guys for tuning in and thank you, co-hosts and special guests. Love you so
Thank
much.
you.
We
it was an
shall
honor. Thank you for having
reconvene
me.
next
I enjoyed
Saturday.
it.
You're so welcome. Definitely come back anytime. Let us know whatever you
Let me
got.
know.
Come on back.
All right.
I just want to give a special shout out to Sandrine Blake, our producer as well. She is phenomenal.
Yes.
So we have to make sure we give out her information just in case anyone wants to use her services, although we want to keep her
Yes.
for ourselves, but we understand sharing is caring. Thank you, Sandrine.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
Sandrine.
Sandrine.
We love everyone. Definitely tune in to us next Saturday, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys. Have a
Thank
good
you. Good
week.
night.
We're out.
Good night.